Now let's get more on our top story today, and that's the government's long-awaited clampdown on extremism. Now, Michael Gove has named 5 groups, including 3 Muslim organisations, that will be investigated over extremism fears. Well, joining us now to discuss this is a spokesperson for Don't Divide Us, Khadija Khan. Welcome to the show, Khadija. Always a pleasure. What do you make of Michael Gove's announcement today? He singled out 3 groups from the Muslim end of the spectrum, as it were, and 2 from the far right. But one of the far right groups hasn't existed since the 1960s. What was your take on it?
Thank you so much for having me. I would like to expand this argument just to put it into a context. Just recently, the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, he announced the budget. And in the very beginning, he's talked about a foreign conflict. And then he talked about tackling extremism. And then he talked about healing divisions. And then he jumped onto the memorial for Muslims, war memorial for Muslims. So there he talked about all these things in a row. And he conflated so many issues. Right now, we are facing a threat that is an Islamist threat. But he, instead of just dealing right away with this threat, he started, playing around the semantics, and the real threat and the discussion that should be focused on this one thing was just nowhere to be seen or to be taken place in social and political discourse. And now come to this announcement about the definition of extremism. The previous definition of extremism was given under the Prevent strategy in 2011. And that was, according to that time and frame, it was quite comprehensive definition, but it didn't work out because people, they were not very much convinced about that definition of extremism. And the same thing is happening at the moment. The people, there is a backlash, against this definition of extremism because it's never worked out in the past, and it's not going to work now because we don't have a problem of defining extremism at the moment. We have extremism, but we have a problem with dealing with extremism. I mean, there are problems with the law enforcers who have been incompetent in dealing with this threat on the streets of London. And this is the problem that we should be talking about. We know what is extremism. There are existing laws regarding hate speech, regarding tackling extremism. So we don't need further definition of it. And as you said about those 3 groups, Muslim organizations that have been singled out in Michael Gove's speech, I would say that these groups have been, reported in mainstream media outlets about their activities, about their associations. Yet there was no action that could be taken against them and try to prevent those activities or associations. I mean, this is the problem where the laws are not being enforced or implemented. This is not the problem about what is...
Can I interject? Can I please interject to that point, Khadija? Because strikes me that missing from this debate so often are Muslim voices such as your own to put a degree of balance on this conversation, because, of course, all Muslims are not the same and do not share the same values. And in fact, one of the groups identified today, Muslim Engagement and Discipline MEND, specifically in their Islamophobia Awareness Month in 2017, as well as supporting corporal punishment against Jews, homosexuals, they also singled out non-believers, Muslims as they called them, minority Muslim sects, clearly taking umbrage with people within the Muslim community who don't agree with their extremist views. And in that sense, it needs people such as yourself to call them out.
The problem is that there have been moderate voices, dissenting voices within the Muslim communities, but they were silenced, they were muzzled, they were brushed aside. And people like these organizations who run these organizations, we see these people being presented on media outlets as the representatives of Muslim communities. I mean, Anjan Chaudhry was presented as a spokesperson from Muslim communities. Then Mohammed Hijab was presented as a spokesperson for Muslim communities. Now we see Shakil Afsar, who led, intimidating mobs outside the schools and cinemas, and who heckled a British MP. I mean, he is being featured in Sky News today. I just saw that, and it was so shocking for me, as he was presented as a spokesperson for Muslim communities. I mean, this is the governments, the successive governments who have been giving these people so much importance and treating them as the so-called, community leaders, and then the media outlets who give these people, the oxygen of publicity. And then somehow these people, they manage to get a position where they bully the whole communities into compliance, really. And people, they just don't want to get into trouble for that reason. Because, just imagine that...
Could I also interject again? Because obviously that individual, he's not here to defend himself. Let's put that to one side. But can I ask you a question about the idea that a lot of the time the politicians, they don't seem to understand the nature, and by trying to do the right thing, by trying to give Muslim communities a voice, we're seeing they are endorsing these organisations and often funding them. We had a counter-terrorism expert on earlier, Tom Wilson, who said often money is changing hands because they're not aware of the fact they think that these groups are doing good, but actually, in actual fact, in terms of certainly the ones that were named today, turn out to be opportunists who are actually dividing us.
That is the problem, actually. I mean, there are fringes, extreme fringes within the Muslim communities. These fringes have to be singled out and dealt with. But the problem is that instead of dealing with these fringes head on, the government and the MPs and the media, they are just like tiptoeing around these issues. I mean, they are bringing into discussion things such as building war memorial and then, healing divisions. I mean, there is a threat. There are people who are promoting intolerant views and beliefs, and they are basing the foundation of those views on religion, on religious teachings. You need to tackle these issues head on. And when they say that they cannot understand the moderate voices coming from the Muslim communities, I mean, I don't buy into this argument, because there are many British Muslims who are living a peaceful life, who love Britain, who espouse democratic secular values, freedom of speech that we all espouse and we take pride in. But then those people, where do you see those people? I mean, if they want to talk to someone from Muslim community, they would go for the rigid interpretation of the religion. And those people who espouse those rigid and intolerant views and intolerant interpretation of religion, of course, they would choose them to represent the Muslim communities. And these people, these so-called community leaders, they have become a face of Muslim community, and that present them in such bad light for the rest of the society. I mean, people like...
Thank you very much for speaking out and having the bravery to be one of those moderate Muslim voices, calling out this bad behaviour. An excellent interview. Thank you so much for joining us. And our spokesperson from Don't Divide Us, Khadija Khan, thank you very, very much indeed. What a superb, balanced interview that was. Love it.